Hello everyone, welcome back to another video of this channel Breaking the Barriers, and today's video is second part of the chapter The Last Lesson, which comes in CBSE syllabus for class 12th in the book Flamingo. Now this particular chapter I have already started in a previous video, but I have not completed it over there because the video was being too long and I wanted to reduce the duration of the video, and that is why I divided it into two parts. This is the second video, the second part of the chapter. So here I am going to start the explanation with where I left in the first video. So if you have not watched the first video, I suggest you click on the I button coming here and you see the first part, understand a chapter from that part, and then the remaining chapter I am going to start in this video. So without wasting any time, let's start. So in the first video, we completed our explanation till the point where we see that M. Hamel is saying that your French language is like or your native language is like a key to the prison. If you have the language with you, it's like that you are stuck in a prison and you are having the key so that you can free yourself from the prison. Now I'm not going to explain it again, it is already covered in the first video. I am just going to continue the lesson after this part where it starts. Now you open your NCRT books and we are going to do it in the same way where I will be reading the chapter from the NCRT and I will be explaining it line by line. So it says, then he opened a grammar and read us our lesson. Now he started reading a grammar lesson. I was amazed. Now I told you in the first part that everywhere where I is used, it is used by France, and this chapter is narrated to you by France in first person context. Okay, so I was amazed to see how well I understood it, and be all he said seemed so easy. Think too that I had never listened so carefully and that he had never explained everything with so much of patience. So on this last day, Franz is saying that I listened to the lesson very carefully and I was able to understand it completely. It seemed so easy. I thought that I never paid attention to it, otherwise I have already understood it. And I have never seen my teacher Mr. M. Hamill explaining everything with such delicate patience. So in this last lesson, the student is also extremely attentive and the teacher is also putting in all his effort so that he could make them understand each and every part of this particular subject or language. So it further says, it seems almost as if the poor man wanted to give us all he knew before going away. Now, obviously, this is the last class. So Franz is saying that it resembles as if in this last class, he's trying his 100% to give us everything, put everything into our heads at one stroke. It looks like in one go, in one attempt, he wants to give us the complete knowledge that he has. After the grammar, we had a lesson in writing. Now obviously this is the last day, so he's leaving no stone unturned. So after the grammar part, he is also covering the writing part. So they had a lesson in writing. That day M. Hamill had new copies for us. Now these copies were distributed by M. Hamill among the students. These were new copies written in beautiful round hand. Beautiful round hand means beautiful cursive writing or beautiful handwriting. They were written and they wrote France, Alsac, France, Alsac. Now you know France is the name of the country and Alsac is the name of their region where they are living. I told you it's a district of France. And they looked like little flags floating everywhere in the schoolroom, hung from the rod at the top of our desks. So he's saying that these copies were looking so beautiful. It was like they are small flags of our nation. On the flags, France and Elsac is written. Now these are not original flags, these are actually notebooks, but he's saying that after writing France and Alsac on them, these notebooks resembled like beautiful small flags of France and Alsac, and he's saying it resembled like they are hanging from small rods on our desk. You must have seen in movies that government officials like IAS officers or police officers, they have this small showpiece on top of their desks where two Indian flags are placed in V shape, and between they have small god idol or a small clock. So that is kind of thing that he's saying. I'm just sharing with you this thing for you to understand it in a better way, that what he's trying to say. So he's saying that those pages after writing France and Elsac on them resembled like flags which are hanging on small rods from our desk. Okay, You ought to have seen how everyone set to work and how quiet it was. He's saying everybody was very quietly busy doing their work. Nobody was disturbing the class. Nobody was shouting. The only sound was the scratching of the pens over the paper. You know, when exam halls are completely silent, you just can hear the scratching of the pens on the paper. Once some beetles flew in. Now you all know what are beetles, a kind of flying insect. So whenever these type of insects come in, students have a habit to they get distracted from the lessons and they try to concentrate on the insects and all. But today, to Fran's surprise, no one was interested or paying attention to these beetles, not even the littlest ones, means not even the smallest students, who worked right on tracing their fish hooks as if that was French too. Everybody was busy doing their work. Now, what is this fish hook? Fish hook is an unofficial term which is used to denote alphabets in the French language. Those alphabets which will never be uttered while you are reading a paragraph. For example, when you are reading a particular paragraph, will you read a full stop, comma, question mark, exclamation mark? No. If you are reading a sentence and at the end of the sentence you have a full stop, you will not say Ram was a very good cricketer, full stop. No, that full stop will not be read by you, but it's a punctuation mark. Similarly, some symbols in French language are unofficially called fish hooks. So fish hooks are not that important when you are learning French. But today he's saying everybody is so much indulged in learning French that they are concentrating 100% just to make those fish hooks exactly as they should be. Okay, I hope it is clear. On the roof, the pigeons cooed very low, and I thought to myself, will they make them sing in German? Even the pigeons. This is very important line. This have been asked many times in the question. So he's saying that will they also have these pigeons singing in German language? Now, cooing is natural thing for pigeons. Similarly, people who are born and brought up in France, French is their natural language. When they are taking away their natural language from the people, so that is what France is saying. They are being so rude to us. They are trying to oppress us. They are trying to inculcate their language in our tradition. They are trying to snatch away our mother tongue from us. Will they also do this with the pigeons? Can they destroy or can they take away the natural cooing of the pigeons? They are being so harsh. Can they do that? And that's a question mark. He is questioning himself. Whenever I looked up from my writing, means whenever he tried to look up what Mr. Hamill is doing, Mr. Hamill was sitting motionless in his chair and gazing first at one thing, then to the other. So Mr. Hamill was looking at one thing, then to the other, then to the third. It's like he's trying to make a map in his mind, an image in his mind, which he will cherish throughout his life, as he wanted to fix in his mind just how everything looked in that little school room. So he said, quite fancy, isn't it? For 40 years, he had been there in the same place. Now, today, Mr. M. Hamill is looking at everything in such a way as everything is new for him or he is looking at them for the first time. But he's saying it's quite amusing because for 40 years, past 40 years, Mr. M. Hamill has been in this same classroom and everything is quite familiar to him. Still, he is trying to see everything in such a way as he is trying to create an image or memory in his mind. For 40 years, he had been there in the same place with his garden outside the window, just outside the window of the classroom. You can see his garden and the class in front of him. Okay, so 40 years he has seen the same thing, same scene in front the class, and from the window he could see his garden. Just like that, only the desks and the benches had been worn smooth. Now, when you use something continuously for years, like here 40 years, the surface of that thing tends to smoothen out. Like if you use a wooden table for 10 years, 20 years, 25 years, the base of that table, the surface of the table will smooth out. So that is what he's saying. The only similar small changes that he has seen in 40 years is that the desks and benches have been worn smooth and the walnut trees in the garden have become taller in this 40 years. And hop vine means बेल वाले पेड़ जैसे money plants होते हैं. He's saying hop vine that he has planted himself ट्वाइंड अबाउट द विंडो ऑन द रूफ. ट्वाइंड मींस ऐसे सर्कुलर मोशन में जो ऊपर जाता है, ठीक है, जैसे आप कहीं भी मनी प्लांट वगैरह लगा दो तो वो ऐसे किसी भी चीज को सर्कुलेट करके ग्रो करता जाता है. सो दैट इज व्हाट सेइंग दैट दीज हॉप वाइन्स हैव ट्वाइंड अबाउट फ्रॉम विंडोज टू द रूफ, मींस दे हैज ग्रोन सो मच. दिस इज व्हाट ही इज सेइंग. How it must have broken his heart to leave it all. He's going to leave this all. Poor man, to hear his sister moving about in the room above, packing their trunks, for they must leave the country next day. So they are saying that on the upper floor, the sister, Mr. M. Hamill's sister, is busy packing the trunks. Trunks means big boxes which you use for packing. So just above the classroom, there was a room in which M. Hamill's sister is packing their stuff because they have to leave the country the next day according to the German order. So he's saying it is very, you can say, emotional moment for him that he's taking his last class, and from the top of the room or from the top of the roof he could hear the trunks being packed. But he had the courage to hear every lesson to the last. After the writing, we had a lesson in history. After that, the writing lesson is over. They had a lesson in history, and then the babies chanted. Now I told you this is a school, so there are students from different age groups, small students and students of senior classes also. So he's saying the babies in the other room, they were chanting their lessons. BA, BE, BI, BO, BU. Like in nursery classes, you teach children A for apple, B for ball, A, B, C, D, in a similar way. Down there at the back of the room, old Hosser. Now I already told you that old Hosser was a farmer who was sitting at the end, and with him the mayor and other people also were sitting paying their tribute to the teacher for his last class. So old Hosser had put on his spectacles and he was holding his primer. Primer, I told you in the first part of the video what is the primer. You can go and check back in the first video. He held his primer in both his hands, spelled the letters with them. He was trying to spell the letters. You could see that he too was crying with his emotions. The old officer is also crying, and his voice was trembling as he was trying to read those letters. And it was so funny to hear him that we all wanted to laugh and cry because he was sounding very funny when he was crying and tried to read that primer. Ah, how well I remember it. This was my last lesson. All at once, the church clock struck 12. 12 o'clock was the time when the school used to get over. The church clock is like a big clock in the center of the city which sounds at every hour. So, church clock struck 12, and then the Angelus. Now, what is this Angelus? Angelus is a prayer which Roman Catholics say every morning, every noon and every night. जैसे मस्जिद से नमाज पढ़ने का एक पर्टिकुलर टाइम होता है जब अजान होती है मस्जिदों से, उसी तरह रोमन कैथलिक ट्रेडिशन में एंगलस होता है every morning, every noon, every night. So this angelus and this clock means that it is time to finish the school. At the same moment, the trumpets of the Prussians returning from drill sounded under our windows. Now, Prussian soldiers were also returning from their drill. Drill जो march होता है उनका, जो march करके वो निकलते हैं इधर उधर, तो drill से वापस लौट रहे हैं, तो their trumpets are being sounded for that. And M. Hamill stood up, very pale. Pale means when you are energyless, yellowish texture on your face, weak. Very pale, he stood up in his chair. I never saw him look so tall. Means he was looking quite tall. My friends, said he is the mammal over here. I, but something choked him and he could not go on. He was stuck on this eye. इतना emotional था वो, he was filled with emotions that he is not able to speak. He is not able to give his last speech. He could not go on. Then he turned to the blackboard, took a piece of chalk, and bearing on with all his might, he wrote as large as he could, Vive la France. उसने चौक पकड़ी, ब्लैक बोर्ड की तरफ गया और अपनी पूरी ताकत से with all his might he wrote Vive la France. Vive la France means long live France. This is French language. Then he stopped, leaned his head against the wall like in a sad way, and without a word he made a gesture to us with his hand. With his hand he made a gesture, school is dismissed, you may go. He didn't said anything, he just made the gesture like you can go. He was so much filled with emotions that he was not able to say his last speech to his students. He just wrote Vive la France, which means long live France. So this here I finished line by line explanation of the chapter. If still you are unable to understand anything, please mention it in the comments and I will definitely answer you. If you like this video, please subscribe this channel and hit that like button under the video. Promote my channel. I'm in the initial stage of this channel. I want all your love and support for the growth of this channel. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Happy learning.